Welcome back, everyone, and hello to our audience on Zoom. I'm thrilled to announce our first featured reader for the evening, Shauntelle Dick-Charleson. Shauntelle is the 2025-2026 Youth Poet Laureate of Victoria. A rising star in the spoken word community, Shauntelle is a poet from the Hesquiaht and Songhees First Nation, whose work shines a light on Indigenous resilience, intergenerational trauma, and the experiences of Indigenous women. She began writing in grade 10 and quickly found her voice on the stage. In 2019, she competed with the Vic Slam Team at the Canadian Festival of Spoken Word, where they placed 8th at Nationals. Her poetry has been featured in Aboriginal Voices too, and she dreams of publishing her own book one day. Please welcome Shauntelle.
It's Shauntelle asa si Hesquiaht chasa son atlakongen namin samat natin jamatuk nasila lachichola ait konst ata elang anakwa atlakongen. Hello everyone, good day. My ancestral name is Hesquiaht, and that was given to me from my father's side. I also have another name, which is Hupkusta'a, which loosely translates into sunrise, given to me by my late great-grandmother, Mamie Charleson. I just introduced myself saying that I come from here, the Lekwungen lands, and that my father, Samet, also known as David Dick, my mother, Chamatuk, also known as Joy Charleson, and my grandfather, Skip Dick. His gifted name is Lachihula. So the first poem I have is called Where Are Our Women? And this touches on the topic of missing and murdered Indigenous women. And yeah. Hey, hey, oh, yeah, yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, oh, hey. The echoes of a song is carried by wind. As I walk the edge of this road, I look into forest as it watches me back. The earth murmurs truths this world has trained itself not to hear. Our woman, taken into ground, held beneath layers of silence, no justice, no trace of her, just spirits moving through the dark, searching for the pathway home. Where are our women? Before this question can settle in my mouth, the world answers a different one. A blonde girl disappears. Amber alerts light up the news. Everyone is looking for her. TikToks made left and right, spread like wildfire through the night. Red paints the sky for her. Her name lives in trending searches. Where is she? We need to find her in hours, maybe days, and she is found. Action. Cameras roll. Netflix captures her life story. How did she end up here? How can we prevent this? But what about Morgan Harris? Serena Collison, Helen Claire Frost, Carson Seaweed, say their names. Indigenous women go missing every year. Where is the action for them? Where are the documentaries for MMIW? There are 532 names on the Native Women's Association's list. There are 231 calls for justice in the National Inquiry's report. We are not statistics. Where are our women? Blood mixed with garbage in the landfill that calls to be searched. These grounds call to be searched. And I don't want to believe skin color is why. But it is. I know it is. Because I look at all these stories told for white women found and the silence starts to choke our Indigenous woman. Hands of accountability wrapping around her throat. Where is the justice? They are not statistics. They are daughters. Some are mothers whose children still cry out for their mamas. Where are our women? Highway 16 is alive and this land still remembers. It has watched everything, its long black spine cutting through the forest, carrying secrets. It never asked to hold. These ditches learned how to cradle bodies as gently as they know how to, mute and trembling, unable to call for help in the night, sees the truth.
Streetlights flicker, 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 flicker to capture someone's attention. Car horns wail warnings that we don't understand, and this still happens. Highways left unsearched. Landfills left unsearched, places holding our woman while bulldozers become accomplices, burying evidence of her, body parts mixed with plastic and styrofoam, blood mistaken for garbage slosh. Where is the justice? We are not statistics. We will not forget her name, but you might. Our women are sacred. They are our life. So mark my words, we will not let this keep happening. We will sing songs of justice. We will storm the parliaments if we must. Where are our women? They are still calling for us to find them.
Hey, hey, oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, hey, hey. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. So the next poem is called When I Return. Just a trigger warning, this does have the mention of death in it, and yeah. The question, what happens when you die, used to freeze me. Looping in a silent panic, what will I become? Wondering, will this life of mine be worth talking about? And as I fall into a slumber, portals would open, leading me to heaven and hell, biblical angels watching from afar as I slip out of my body while asleep, hovering just beyond myself, wondering. When we fall asleep, are we closer to the other side? Where spirits wander aimlessly, where mountains stretch on forever, yet look impossibly small, and northern lights dance across the hemisphere. And it feels so surreal. And sometimes this life feels so surreal, and I start to reach for something to anchor me back to earth, because at some point these thoughts clouded why I wanted to be here, yet I stayed. And maybe it's love that keeps me here. The thought of leaving love, the ones I love, aches. This heart of mine does not want to say goodbye. The smiles I would miss, the hugs I would never get, the voices that once made me laugh, that once made me feel seen. And maybe my fear of dying is just my heart afraid of leaving. So as I calm my breath, press my feet into soil, count the tips of my fingers, remind myself that I am here, but I still think, what happens when I die? So I want you to remember this. I want my body given back to earth, returned to our original mother, bone to soil, breath to wind. And if that is not enough, burn me to ash, turn me back into stardust, into the universe we once came from. Under a microscope, you might see me flying with the shooting stars, see me sparkle, see me dance across the sky. Every atom in me was forged into these stars, so returning them feels less like dying and more like remembering. I was taught that stars are the people we love, still watching, still guiding, still near. So when you ask me, what do you think happens when you die? I will try not to freeze. I will try not to spiral. And I will take a deep breath and tell you I will be returning to what was once home, to a sacred place of refuge where my spirit is welcomed like family. There will be a celebration, voices from past lives, hands clapping for all that I've carried, all that I've endured, all that I've survived, all that I became in this lifetime. And I may still be scared, and I may still be anxious, but I will no longer freeze, because I know my spirit has finally found rest, and I will finally be home. Thank you. This last poem I have is called I Found It. This poem means a lot. It basically kind of talks about the journey of finding the language again and learning the language. And that's been such a big step for me. And yeah. I began my journey Wandering through a building with stained glass murals all over, eyes watching me, yet benches empty. And I searched through the cellars below, Bible after Bible, trying to find something, find a clue, finding nothing but the hollow confirmation that what I was looking for was never meant to be here. And then I heard it, a voice, a whisper pulling me toward river by forest edge, barefoot, feeling my ancestors guiding me forward, guiding me to the men singing in our mother's tongue as if it has never been forbidden. Not thinking, just singing, just speaking. A warmth settled in my chest and I knew why I was there. I knew what needed to be done and I sat, crossed my legs, closed my eyes and let the voices lead. Ane, Ane, come sit, girl. And I listened, guidance from my elders, from my brothers and sisters, from mothers and fathers moving through me as I sat connected to Mother Earth. The language once foreign began to soften, to open, and I understood. I understood the ins and out of this language of mine that I once wished to dream in, to think in. And here I am speaking in rhymes that once only lived in my blood. They tried to beat the language from our bodies, but this blood of mine remembers. I remember who I am. And I carry this knowledge forward as I speak this language. I speak it so the children will never have to search for what was always theirs. I learn so our little ones will remember the language, the stories of who we are as Lakwangan people, because these children among us are elders in the making, and our young girls are matriarchs in the training. And we are still here. Our language lives in our mouths. We speak it not as a permission, but as an inheritance. And as I open my eyes, the river is still there, nothing asking me to prove myself. My tongue rests easily now. The words do not rush. They wait. And one day a child will speak them without knowing they were ever taken from them. Sounding like breath, like water, like something learned the way the heart learns to beat. Until then, I will carry these words with me and I will speak them proudly. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauntelle, for sharing your poems with us. Your voice has just absolutely filled the room. Thank you so much. So our next and final featured reader for the evening is Jamali Rad. Jamali Rad is a text-forward artist born in Iran and currently based in Windsor, Ontario, on the traditional territory of the Anishnaabeg people of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa. They have published 3 full-length books of poetry through Talonbooks, For Love and Autonomy, Still, and No Signal, No Noise. Please welcome A.
Hi, thanks for having me here, and thank you, Shauntelle. That was a really powerful reading. So this book is the first in a series about the origin of the concept of the binary. This one, sorry? Just can't quite hear you. Oh.
They can't hear you.
Oh, okay. Thought that you could, but
yeah, that's good.
This is better. Okay. Okay, so this book is about the origin of the concept of zero. It's kind of written part like fiction, part historical text, and part poetry. I'm not really going to read any historical stuff for you tonight, but you'll get a little bit of the other stuff. Okay. I'm going to start with a quote by Edward Glissant from Poetics of Relation. If it is true that the intolerant violence of filiation was formally buried in the sacred mystery of the root, and that entering into the opacity of this mystery was tragically granted, And if this opacity therefore both signified the mystery and simultaneously masked its violence, this always took place in function of a final underlying transparency in the tragic struggle. Language is a system of sounds. Language is a system of sounds that can be represented by a system of writing. A system of writing must have a purpose or some sort of meaning to it, and have a set of symbols which can be both written and read. Language is a systematic structure derived from material forms of relation. Material relations build forms upon forms of words, symbols, and numbers that shape material relations. Language is a system of communication formed by socioeconomic relations within a given community. Language is a social practice and is deeply embedded in everyday activities and forms of life. Language exists only in relation. Language, as controlled by the ruling class, disguises class conflicts and perpetuates false consciousness. The ruling class constantly alters language to meet their needs, while insisting on its fidelity to objective truth. Language, as controlled and managed by the ruling class, is structured by writing. Language is structured by writing, and writing provides a framework that can mimic, represent, reflect, or determine the ideological underpinnings for a given society. The writing of numbers, combined with ideologically bent language, allows the ruling class to shape understanding and guide future knowledge production. In this way, the ruling class skews the material world, furthering their ideology. If language cannot be changed, neither can the conditions of the working class. The following is an account of how it all started. Everything changed when I found the book. It was a brisk morning, either late autumn or early spring. I can't remember. What I do remember is walking about through the uninhabited depths of narrow alleyways and on flat wastelands of crumbling sidewalks. A little disoriented or disengaged, I was still determining for what purpose I was out and about. A day is like an unblooming flower upon which one may stumble, like I assume I did that day, upon a semi-ancient manuscript, a notebook of sorts, written by one who can only be called an obsessive who, with little knowledge of mathematics, seems enthralled by the concept of zero. I found myself immediately taken in by the mysteries of this number. At first glance, the text appeared to be some sort of linguistic exercise, wherein the semi-ancient, yet purely modern, monomaniac continuously pursues sources that they believe will lead them to the origin story of this admittedly complex entity. I held the disordered pages of text between my hands, unable to know what to make of such a mess. Flipping through the pages, I landed on a random one and began to read. Plagued by negative definition, zero is defined by that which isn't, is non-being, is unlife. It gives form to that which does not exist. It names that which has no name. It positions that which cannot have a place. Zero is absence, annihilation, the privation of language, and the removal of space and time. Zero is lack embodied. I drew a picture of nothing. Now I can't seem to find it. Zero is disclosure through the prism of ideology and has nothing to show for it. I begin my days as I end them, in traces of shadows surrounding a vague memory of a shape. Sleep is a skill mastered only at death. In the time it takes to count time, I let myself fill space on sidewalks, in bedrooms, in cafes, and in bookshops. I'm in a flea market, a gathering of forgotten wares, a chipped pot, a set of large spoons, a cedar chest filled with spools of scrap yarn, piles and piles of books upon piles of books. A shape is a thing that is always present. It presumes presence. A shape makes anything real. Perhaps one can point to a thing and say, this is a circle. Would that thing not be present to the viewer, and would the utterance not make it legible to the interlocutor? Someone points to a pile and says, look at that pile. Isn't it just this or that? A pile is a collection of shapes, all of which are present for the experiencer of such shapes, and the collection of which they are a part. Someone points to another pile. My eyes follow a gesture like a yellow jacket follows a sweet scent in the depths of summer. Upon landing on the collected shapes, my eyes trace the outline of each shape to know its texture, its weight. But no, eyes cannot know those characteristics. Only touch can interpret the fibers that contain a generalized shape. Only holding the object will transfer a feeling of weight. In such and such a pile, piled upon another, it would seem that I find a tattered, perfect bound assemblage of pages. I place the book in my hands and let it land, ragged and worn on my skin. I trace its edges with my fingers, feeling its minuscule ridges. I breathe in the residue of its past travels. I breathe out the letters spelled on the first page. Z-E-R-O. Naming is a memory for future utterance. I hold the book and open it to a page towards the end. A little taken aback by the rather prescriptive nature of the words I read. Yet I find myself leaning into it, captivated by the thought experiment. Picture yourself out in the world, a physical embodiment of absence. I drew a picture of nothing, and it looks like a hole. Emptiness swells and is clothed in form. I'm feeling my way to the pause that closes a thought. The incandescent darkness that fills emptied fullness. Zero mocks language, builds barriers around nothing, makes nothing knowable, taints knowledge, laughs at the tools made for enclosure, adds nothing, turns everything it touches into. And movement is a vestige of I am and nothing is. And absent is. Refuted recognition is. Against memory is. A frame for otherness is. The outside within is. A transition between sense image and the symbolic order of language is. A place for the in-between is. A holder for the not is. Everything other than is. The systematically negated is. This untamed nature is. A landscape, a backdrop is. The natural background to the human is the negation of civilization, seeing through the scientific gaze is far from an inert thing, is the potential of exponential, is a removal of the proverbial straw, is out of place, is dislodged or exile, is nothing in place of something, is perhaps something, could be, is the unity of everything and nothing, is in movement, the just enclosure of negation that permeates is. It is with a heavy heart that I feel falling, an empty mind, a numbness perhaps. Perhaps if I am without a body that enclosed, perhaps without a body or piles of bodies once embodied, vacuous now, perhaps. Perhaps there's something there, perhaps there's nothing to it, perhaps. And perhaps shaking a tree for falling fruit or a body shaking is also a removal, perhaps. Perhaps a zero amounts to nothing, perhaps dead eyes, dead vacant as the sky, nothing up there. Perhaps in a flash, perhaps it was all for naught, perhaps. Something appears out of nowhere, where this and that are bound together in this forever othered a disparaging despair. To forget is to remember negatively. I have hands and a head, and they proceed in their own ways according to such and such a rule. The history is unbound to its location when forgetting is prioritized over the material. A tree is torn from the ground, paved over, and forgotten. Something is set on fire. Images are staged to distort reality. People forget and are forgotten. I drew a picture of nothing. Now it's over and done with. Thank you.